Namaste. Shalom alaikum. Salam alaikum. My father used to say that they can take everything that you possess, your house, your car, your bank balance. They can take your job away from you. You can get divorced. They can take away your well-earned respect and reputation. They can even take away your life, but what they can never, ever take away from you is your integrity and your character. I was born and raised in Pakistan. My wife, Saira, who's a powerhouse behind anything and everything I do, was also born and raised in Pakistan. We went to medical school together. We met, we fell in love, we got married, and came here for further education. Saira completed her residency in primary care medicine at Rhode Island and Brown University and stayed there as an attending and then moved to Kent. And I continued my training further into nephrology, kidney diseases, and then critical care medicine. And then I got my first and only job, full-time job at Kent Hospital, where I am still. And we got into the groove of our American life pretty quickly. You know, house, cars, we had our children here. Work, home, soccer fields, swim practice, and then weekend barbecues, vacations in Bahamas, whatever. So we were living the American dream. And then 9/11 happened. But more of that shortly. When you get profiled, it's a very interesting phenomenon. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's humiliating, and sometimes it's very frightening. For me, it was more interesting when I realized that I myself profiled people. For example, before coming to the United States, and before having met any American, I used to think that all American high schoolers lived a life something similar to the movie Grease. Yeah. You know, all song and dance, slick hair, fast cars. And that folks of Italian heritage were all connected to Vito Corleone from Godfather. But more embarrassingly and sadly, I thought all Jews hated Muslims, and that all Latino were gangbangers and drug pushers, and that black folks were good-for-nothing, alcoholic, wife-beaters, muggers, rapists, and murderers. As a matter of fact, the first time I came here in New York, and I was walking the sidewalk, and I saw this black man come towards me, I was so scared that I jumped sides, went to the other side. I was sure he would mug me. The poor guy was just going about doing his business. And why did I do that? Because the American narrative was being explained to me by Hollywood and the news media. As a matter of fact, we got a live feed of O.J. Simpson's drive with the police cars behind it. And we used to get the whole, the court proceedings directly live. So American narrative was hijacked by Hollywood. And that is what we knew, and that is what most of the world knows, right now even. So now coming back to 9/11, it didn't matter what we did, what kind of people were we, how nicely we were raising our children, what kind of education we had, how many taxes we were paying, and how many lives we had saved. We were guilty unless proven otherwise. FBI was at our home right here on Rochambeau and Hope within a week, just to make sure. Every time we would go on flights, the TSA, we would have the boarding passes with that special code, SSSS, highlighted, meaning jack up your security for these guys. Our kids were very well versed with the pat-down procedure. And coming back to our own homeland, here, we would always be randomly selected to have a secondary interview. And in that room, there would be many people like me who would all have been randomly selected. So this kind of got humiliating and frightening after a while. But what it did to us is it took us off the grid. We went quiet. We didn't want to talk about anything, no controversies, just keep quiet, work harder than everybody else, give nobody any chance to talk about us in a bad way. And we embarrassingly became more quiet to all the atrocities that were happening in Middle East and in Pakistan, where these criminals, these terrorists were doing terrible, terrible things. But we kept quiet, even when we were challenged by people that, why don't you talk more? We kept quiet because we didn't want any controversy, no limelight on us. December 16th, 2014, a group of armed terrorists entered Army Public School, Peshawar, Pakistan, and slaughtered 150 students and teachers in broad daylight. The children who died were all Muslims, and people who killed them supposedly were all Muslims. That was Saira's school. That day, both me and Saira decided, that's it, enough is enough. We are not going to be quiet anymore. We're not going to have these criminals and these terrorists take narrative from us and describe it on our behalf. We are not violent. We are not uneducated. We are not criminals. Why should we be ashamed? There are 1.6 billion Muslims on this planet. Most of them are peaceful. There are 3 million Muslims in this country, educated, progressive, uniformly peaceful. Why should we be embarrassed? We are your teachers. We are your nurses, bankers, engineers. We flip your burgers and clean your streets and bathrooms and drive your taxis. We're your police officers. We man your neighborhoods. We pull you out from a burning building as firefighters. We are your soldiers. We guard these borders and die trying and get buried in Arlington with full honors. Why should we be ashamed? That became our calling that day. So we unleashed ourselves. A group of us got together. We went viral on social media. We went crazy on print media. We gave interviews. We gave talk shows. We picketed, like when Charlie Hebdo happened, we were in front of the Projo's building in minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit, children, old, young, everybody was there. We were not going to be quiet anymore. We were going to reclaim our narrative. But we didn't know how to do it because we are physicians, but we got help from everywhere. Our employers, our coworkers, our neighbors, our friends, leaders from community, religious leaders, people from NGO, government, local bodies. I mean, like Jews, Christians, white, black, Latino, Asian, everybody was there for us. And they helped us. They encouraged us. They gave us love and support. It was beautiful. We met some very interesting people too. For example, I was being interviewed to give an interview on a radio show where this man wanted me to come into his studio for an audio-visual interview. And he said, you know what, that'll be great, why don't you come over? But, I want you to come in your traditional garb. I said, yeah. I said, I don't understand. What do you mean by traditional garb? Traditional garb. I said, no, I don't know. What do you mean by traditional garb? He said, your long flowing robes and your turban. I said, dude, I don't know what you think. At work, I'm in my scrubs. At home, I'm in my 501s, T-shirt, and flip-flops. Really? I said, yeah, really. I said, well, at least come in your skull cap. I said, oh, yeah, sure, I'll come in my skull cap. But should I drive or should I come on my camel? So he was trying to, create a picture of a Muslim. Anyway, we created an art show known as More Than My Religion. We showcased Muslim artists, and it was hosted by Mayor Jorge Elorza at the city of Providence, very well received. We went to Athenaeum Providence Library, where we had salon session, and we talked one-to-one with the community and told them what we actually were. It was more than our religion. We are just like regular people. Now, this was around the time when this current political cycle was happening, and a certain group of politicians were trying to put minorities, Latino, blacks, and Muslims as a new axis of evil. And to me, personally, this is a very personal opinion, they were becoming as radical and as extremist as the people on the other side of the planet who were doing similar things in a different way. These politicians had actually become ideologically corrupt and morally depleted, and we were not going to take any of this nonsense. But then San Bernardino Valley shooting happened, and within a span of few seconds, all of us Muslims were put back into a box with a label, homegrown terrorist. But a very interesting phenomena happened around that time. The regular folks here started to come to us and saying, we are not going to have this divisive, racist, fascist rhetoric anymore. We are going to push back against this kind of talk. That prompted us to get more confidence, and we organized a rally reclaiming American Muslim narrative on December 13th on Kennedy Plaza. It was very well received. Lots of people came from all backgrounds. Community leaders came and talked. It was brilliant. I have never experienced such emotions in my life. That photograph is from that rally. That day, I actually realized the meaning of the oath of allegiance. One nation, indivisible, and with justice and liberty for all. That day we realized that we have arrived. We are home. You know, when our children were young, I used to read to them the story of Horton. Horton, here's a who. And when you're sleepy and you're reading the story to kids, you really don't understand what is the meaning and what Horton really stands for. So for those people who don't remember or have never read the story, Horton is this magnificent, beautiful elephant living his life in the jungle of Nool. He's passionate, he's caring, and he says what he means, and he means what he says, and he believes that a person is a person no matter how small. So one day he's chilling in this jungle when he hears this little noise on this little speck of dust that is floating around in the air. And he hears this noise, and he said, what's going on here? So he picks up this little speck, and that he finds out that there are little people on it, a full city known as Whoville. And there are little who's in it. They're little beings, and they're terrified that their little universe is going to get destroyed now that they're blowing in the wind. So he says, don't worry, I'll take care of you. So he's going around with his little speck of dust, and all these animals are looking at him and it's like, that's strange. He's gone crazy. So they gang up on him, they make fun of him, then they mock him, and then they get irritated with him, and they say, we're going to put an end to this nonsense. So all the Wickershire, cousins and the kangaroo and the Vladikov and all these people come after Horton. And he's running around trying to save his little friends. But they catch him, they cage him, they shackle him, and they take away the little speck, and they plan to boil it in the hazelnut oil. So Horton tells the mayor of the Who's that you got to create some noise. You need to let them know that you exist. So the mayor gets everybody around, and they get their kettles and their drums and toots and whatever, and they're creating this ruckus. But the sound is not coming up, and nobody can hear them. So they're continuing to boil the oil to put that speck of dust in it. So he asks the mayor, do you have to do more? So he's running around the Who, trying to find somebody else, and he's really desperate, and he's about to give up when he enters this little room where he finds this little Who standing there quietly. His name is Jojo, and he was doing nothing but playing with his yo-yo. Not a sound, not a scream. He was not contributing. So he grabs this little bugger, he takes him out of the house, drags him on the street, takes him to the top of the Whoville, and says that this is the time you have to make a difference. And he asks him to scream as loud as he can. So he clears his throat and screams, yop. That's it, yop. But that little yop, that little sound, combined with everybody else's noise, carried it over. And everybody heard these people, that they're there, they exist. And then everybody understood the concept of a person's a person, no matter how small. So I guess what Horton's trying to do, or Dr. Sue is trying to tell us, is that it doesn't matter how big or small your effort is, as long as you make it with sincerity, passion, and honesty. So in the end, I guess we all have to die. But when we go, we have to make sure, and the only question then is that would we have left a dent in our universe? Thank you.